and the people that were in the house with Sharon Tate, what was it? Two other people murdered, right?
Hmm.
Then you had the other murder scene where at the house where they break into and kill the grocery store owner and his wife. Um, so, so see what else going on. Okay, good.
Yeah, now it's doing.
Now it's
Now I
clear,
can
right?
see that. Now it's
Okay.
streaming. Before
Yeah,
it
good.
wasn't.
Boom. All right. So, um, one of the things I want you guys to think about is um, Charles Manson. Did you guys read? Did you guys get to the point where they talked about kind of his background, his life?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Yeah. Um, how does somebody like this, a person who wasn't educated, how did they become um, so attractive to other people? How was he able to attract all these men and women to basically kill for him? Basically, he used the women as prostitutes, and that's a reoccurring theme throughout the book. Is that
Yeah,
the women
because
were used as prostitutes and
I mean,
murderers. The men were murderers. Well, some of the men were murderers anyway. How
yeah,
did somebody like this, who wasn't very well educated, um, you know, how did he get to this position? And I think that's a big question to ask in this book
I
as we try to as everyone tries to figure out what really happened with these murders in the family.
what I understood, what when I read the history of him, that his terrible kind of like even from the birth, he didn't know his father all the way, and then he um, when his mother was like moving around, and it was probably the mother's character which impacted his life and his personality, and even from the young age, stealing and grand larcening and all those kind of things, those stuff like impacted his life or as his image of, I mean, as a person.
Yeah, but my question is, and this is kind of a loaded question, is how did he
uh,
become so
the music when
endearing? How did he become so endearing? How did he
mu-
become so um, charismatic?
yeah, he was talented in the music, if you know, if they have taught about, like talked in the book even, that he was going for some auditions and like for music auditions.
Yeah, but I think the point was he wasn't very talented. That's why nobody wanted to sign him.
Yeah, but there was some kind of talent. So I mean, like not everybody was around him, but some of the guys you can get them around you who are thinking that they can, if they hook with you, and someday you would become a star, so they can do. And also some of the people who were already into the business of like prostitution and all those, they would trying to um, I don't know, maybe there are some soft corners that they thought at some point they linked together.
Now,
I'll
again,
see
it's a
how the other
loaded
people would.
question.
Yeah, it
I,
is
I
pretty
just don't
loaded.
see. Yeah, I don't. I think that's a big question. Is how does someone who was pretty much a jailbird, a loser, how was he able to attract these very young women
And even
and
when,
even men? Um, remember, I mean, he attracts 15-year-old girls. There's a lot of pedophilia going on here, to the point where he's even able to convince the father. I don't know if you guys read that far yet. To convince the father to, um, the father even stays. The father's tracking this 15-year-old daughter down to the family. and Charles Manson was able to convince the father to to let the girl stay, and the father even stays in the family with them, um, stays in the commune with them. So it's just very interesting to me that someone who wasn't very well educated was able to um,
Hey,
enlist so many people to do crazy things,
Yeah.
i.e., murder.
I mean, that's how they get to, they
He
find some, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, he appealed to human instinct. Actually, humans want. Uh, he was appealing to human instinct. Humans want all these things which he was providing: sex and luxury, and
Yeah,
they wanted to.
but he wasn't
Yeah,
providing any luxury. They basically were a gang, right? They were basically they weren't even a gang.
he
They were a bunch of
yeah
I mean, like
weirdos
he,
who was
but
they were
he
the
tried to violate norms, uh, recurrent norms, the norms that
yeah,
were
but
prevalent in society, and normal people, they want to rebel against prevalent norms in the society. So that's why people were giving him the status of Christ as well.
yeah,
uh,
you remember
Ac-
that ranch where
Actually,
he
he
was
was providing some
staying
counterculture.
alone? Yeah, the ranch they were staying alone. Probably that was the kind of uh, their base point where they can cultivate that culture and create that cult following kind of a thing.
because
So
most of the because they was definitely off the grid somewhere, them branches, right? I'm quite
yes,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you see that kind of a
yeah,
thing that
but
it is described in there.
they were off the grid sometimes. A lot of times they were hanging in Hollywood. Leads to another question. So
Yeah,
as you read the book, I mean they're hanging with major Hollywood folks. The Beach Boys got. Did you guys read to the part where Brian Wilson's brother and was it? I forgot. I'm terrible with names. But Brian Wilson's brother, who they basically attached themselves to. I
yeah,
mean, at the time, the Beach Boys were like the hottest thing going at that
I
time.
saw that the Beach Boys, the Mamas and the Papas, and
The
different
Mamas and
people
the
of the
Pop.
group.
Yeah,
yeah.
But
right.
Polanski himself, you know what I'm saying? He was high powered. He was up there.
Yeah, Polanski was yeah. Polanski was extremely high power. Turns out that Polanski was a weirdo too, right? We know about Roman Polanski.
And I think that a lot of times when people are like that, like I was telling Auntie, like that LSD stuff, that wasn't a norm in our neighborhood. So I don't really know nothing about that world. I know people tripped with the acid or whatever, but I always heard it being referred to either people that was real recluse, like, or they were up there in Hollywood, like high powered or something. I never, like the average folk be like, I got some LSD. Like I just never heard that amongst that crowd. So I don't know what it does to you, but most of them people were on that stuff when they were following behind. When he make a statement that he told a girl, I would like a half a coconut from Rio de Janeiro when she was on her way. Like no
Well,
question asked. Like I got you for a half a coconut to really, you know.
so we know for a fact that the CIA used LSD and did a lot of research on LSD and see how it could on soldiers, on normal people. And I'm not gonna give away the good parts of the book.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, I mean, like,
because now the first couple chapters are kind of setting and scene about the
yeah,
family, and then it starts to connect. He begins to start to connect all the dots, right?
when the Cold War was going, if you're talking about that part, then when the Cold War was going on, both sides were using those kind of hallucinogens or those kind of chemicals to get the people, if you know those kind of things, and still
I
probably
heard
going on.
heroin. I've heard they use heroin like in the Korean War, World War II. I heard they use a heroin heavily. But hallucinants too. I could imagine that. Yeah, if you're saying that if they saying they was doing research on it, whatever, So I could imagine they was giving it. Like when I was in the army, I used to swear out it was something in that juice they used to give us. I'd be like, something wrong with this juice. Couldn't really say. I think it used to like be something that would cut the sexual appetite. Now in hindsight, I didn't know like what it was then. Still don't even really know today what it was. But I know it was something they was giving us. I know it was. I just don't know what it was.
So they they let out. I think it was during Trump's first administration. They released a lot of confidential. You can get it yourself, and in those papers, um, in these confidential papers, there's a lot of stuff about what the government was doing with LSD, and confirmed a lot of the conspiracy theories were confirmed that the government was using LSD for research. And that's what we're going to get into MK Ultra soon. But
So because look, imagine if you could really imagine Manson, the influence he had over people, including with the use of LSD. So imagine if the government or the military or whoever thought that they could really have that influence over people with that same thing.
So what we're going to find out later? We're going to find out later is Manson and the family are connected to CIA agents.
Yeah, and also
you're gonna find that out later in the book. So my theory is that while Manson was in jail, because he spent most of his life in prison.
A lot.
Right?
All of his life.
Basically all of his life.
He had so many chances. I couldn't when it was saying how many times he had been locked up in the places, I was like, who gets that many chances in life like that? Like, wow.
Did you
Even some ladies,
remember the one about his wife at the time?
Yeah.
she just best she asked, "Oh, we just got married." They just okay, I let him go.
I let him go. Yeah.
But I want you to connect for a second. All these, I don't know. Again, I think everybody. I don't know how far you guys read, but all these sex parties. Isn't there a connection with all this Diddy stuff, all this Jeffrey Epstein stuff?
It always has been, though. It always has been.
I was going to tell.
It's interesting to me. So another theme that I want us, as we continue to read the book, is how sex is used in this game, whatever game is being played, right? This game of manipulation, and then pedophilia, because it seems like drugs, sex, pedophilia, and music are reoccurring themes always, and same things occur today, right? This is like Jay-Z just accused of having sex with an underage girl, right? Epstein was supposed to have underage women on the in that island, right?
Trump, Gates, the list goes on and on. Half of Congress, half of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it's the power and the money and all those kind of things.
These are kind of reoccurring things.
What did Asin say? I'm sorry.
I was saying when the money and the power is there, so you can go in all directions. And also, I was I know in Beverly Hills and those studios, though everybody doesn't make to the screen, the big screen. So the people who try and go there, maybe 1,000 people go there, and only maybe 10 or 20, even if the 100 would make it to the screen, those 900, what they would do. So they are kind of left out, and they look for any kind of footholding they can get to, and think like if you are suggesting those LSDs kind of things, so they would not be able to make a right choice or right decision. And if they are not from the less privileged families and the parenthood and all those kind of loose connections, so they can go into any direction.
Yeah. So my position is that Manson and a lot of these people were trained, and he might not even been aware that he was trained to be this charismatic. He was, because I don't think he had the skill set otherwise to do so. I think in prison he was selected and trained. People are selected for things.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you.
Down and out, nowhere to go, no family, nobody to love you, no one who cares. They let them get away with it. They knew the ranches was there. They knew what they were doing. They got away with it.
And Tom O'Neill, he says this. I think he says in the chapter 2, there was a branch of the LAPD that was like the FBI. They knew everything that was going on in LA. Like so, like they would have known that these murders were going down because
And they told
Manson.
the original detective on the case, they pretty much told him, keep your nose out of this.
Stay out of it. And so why do you have this? You know, why do you have this very boisterous DA? You know what I mean? Like you don't have like a regular kind of. You have this very boisterous, very ambitious DA in Bugliosi, right? Like Bugliosi is a character within in himself, right? He's a character. All these people are characters. You don't have any normal people. Like you would expect the DA to be normal, right? But Bugliosi, I don't. You'll find out later. I think in the later chapters, like Bugliosi has his crap with him. He has a lot of crap with him, right? I'm not again. Some people didn't read it all the way up to chapter 4, but
I didn't get to chapter
so
4.
why do all these people like? Why is it? There's no one with clean hands here in this story so far. All the characters that we meet. In fact, I would argue that Sharon Tate is probably the the uh the most innocent person out of this whole thing, right? Um, Polanski is a
She had a
pedophile or
high
rape.
power husband, and she just wanted to make it, and she was
She was just wanted to
got
make
caught
it.
up.
Got
Because if
caught up.
he was pimping her out in the house.
Right. Well, yeah, because they had the video. Did you watch that about the? Did you get to that part?
Yeah, that's crazy.
They caught the
That's
video and then the.
crazy.
So why would the police let him take the video? Right.
To make sure it was there, to make sure that nobody else saw it. Not only that, you would think that to say, well, this is what somebody that's similar to a pimp. Like I said, you pimp your spouse out or whatever. But think about it. What was didn't the case just happen like that somewhere? What was that in France or wherever that was
Oh
at?
yeah, yeah, yeah. In France, the lady was he was drugging his wife, and but that was like 3 times a week. He didn't do it one time. He did it. He was doing it all the time.
And you
And
would think that that didn't exist. You read about this story in the 60s and you 2024, somebody's still guilty of that.
if that movie was on Netflix, you would say that could never happen. You would say that was completely fiction, right? This man, not only was he drugging his wife and having random men rape her,
And she was
he,
pretty famous on her own. You know what I'm saying? In her own right. We
but
talking about Sharon. We talking about back to
no,
Sharon
no,
Tate.
no, no. I'm talking about the French lady,
The French
the
lady.
recent, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is this connection with? It's just interesting how it's very interesting how this very deviant sexual behavior. Like I really believe there's more to that French story than meets the eye. Right? There's a lot more to that story. How is this man that bold to do it over the internet, to invite people to his house, to film it? How was he that bold? How did he know how?
How could a friend imagine getting a call from a friend be like, come on over? You be like, what are you talking about? Come on over with your wife. Like, come on, that's ludicrous.
But how did he know? He was an electrician. How did he know how to do the cocktail to knock her out like that?
I thought he was I thought he was like in the government or something. He
No,
wasn't.
he's an electrician. They both
Wow.
worked they both worked for an electrical company. She was admin, he was an electrician.
Well,
So
Bill
he was
Cosby knew. Wasn't no formula, it's just a pill.
yeah, but
Yeah, they didn't
no,
have
but
to create it, they just had to
the
use it.
cocktail no, that
Yeah,
They,
cocktail
yeah.
that he gave his wife was like
So in this case,
medical.
he was giving his wife a cocktail. He wasn't just giving her a pill like in Bill Cosby
No,
cases.
no, no. He was mixing up stuff in her drinks and her food. She didn't know it.
That many
And
mm,
times a week, though, you right. Like, come on.
and she was going coma. He was putting her in a coma. He was in a medically induced coma. with this.
To watch
How
other men be with her. Oh gosh, hell.
so so I don't believe for a second that it stops there. Right? I don't believe for 1 second it stops there. I think this stuff, like the Diddy stuff and all this other stuff, is connected in some weird occult. It's some weird occult, right? For
What do they
somebody to
call
be
it?
that brazen, and I
I mean,
believe that you take somebody like Charlie Manson, who wasn't a smart guy. I believe that he was trained to uh, be charismatic. He was trained to otherwise who would he was a loser.
I
He
don't
was a
think he was
loser.
charismatic. I think that he just took advantage of people and they just let him get away with it. Like I don't like even Donald Trump. I don't see him as a charismatic person at all.
But he's wealthy. That's a little bit different. We're talking about somebody who's wealthy. We're talking about somebody who's poor, who has no skill set, who these guys were high level. You and none of us could go in Hollywood and just start inviting ourselves into people's homes. They were inviting themselves in
I mean,
people's homes. This
I
is
don't
just
know. You
ridiculous.
call them as like, even if there are con artists and those kind of they definitely have skills to do those kind of things.
Con artists are smart. Con artists are smart.
Yeah.
Manson was some sort of a con artist.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he was a con artist. He was a bully.
In the beginning he wasn't a bullying guy. He was a con artist.
How was he a con artist? He was
because he got people to come into his fold. And under false pretenses, they wasn't really gaining nothing. They wasn't promising anything, but we love you and let's just do this and let's have sex and just
like we are free from the regular norms and we are like we discard all those kind of things
or did he just give them? Was he trained just like I'm trying to connect the dots here? Just like that, I believe that the husband in this French case was trained to knock out his wife. I think just like I believe that Diddy was just a surrogate, right? That all these guys, these rappers, these Hollywood people, they're all surrogates to something a bigger.
What's that word that they call it? That I know not a secret society, but it's another word. Oh God, I'll think of it in a minute. That they was like, no, you got to be this kind of person to be into the music industry and stuff like that. Hov just followed suit. He just upped the game, some on a different level, but he wasn't no different.
there are people. Those people are like, whenever you see that you are struggling with when you are going for the Hollywood or all those kind of things and you're struggling, those people who are really not artists, but when they get depressed, and so these are their clients for those drug dealers.
Yeah, but yes. I want to make the point that I don't think it's innocent. I think there's something bigger going on. Right?
No, they definitely had to use them because a lot of times that's who they use, people on the outs, people that really need a break, people that's about to get in trouble, and they, turn them into informers. Like that's the people that they use. And his police record from a young child was too extensive for him to just be like, let go or whatever. So somebody was like, probably like, yeah, but you gotta do this, you gotta do things this way or whatever. So yeah, I believe that, but it's easy to catch on for a survivor still to go from bullying to con artist. That's easy to do. He was already breaking in entry and stealing stuff. He was a bully, but he was still doing petty stuff for money, right?
But how did he get that bold? My position is somebody trained him to be that.
I would ask you.
It wasn't like he's a big guy. It's not like he was.
No, who let him get away with it? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, Ray, I will ask you. Have you read in the book? It is not telling about. It starts from the murder stuff, and it just explores something. Have you read about his earlier life?
Yeah. The Manson,
the Charles Manson.
I have.
Yeah. So if you see his childhood, how he was born, how his mother, how he traveled, and when it was the first stage, I think he was just less than 10 years or 11 when he made the first kind of
He broke it, but I think he was breaking into
Eight.
supermarkets or
I
something.
think he was
supermarket
eight.
store or
Yeah.
8 years
8 or
old.
9, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so even his like
And
later in his life,
his parents, he didn't have the best back. You know, his mother was a criminal.
yeah, she turned into, yeah.
Alcoholics.
Yeah, she was a
And
criminal.
alcohol was one of the like her
So
weaknesses.
that's what I'm saying. He's a prime candidate to be a surrogate of the CIA or the government. He's a prime candidate, right?
I want to ask you.
Because you gotta also think about that time. There was about time of rebellion, the flower children, all this stuff. So I think the government wanted a way to control these people who were instrumental in sending messages to the world, into the country, right? What type of messages were they going to send to the country?
I think that they was trying to groom a group of people that was going to overpower the Black Panther, because he himself, the author mentions that Manson said that everybody deserves, nobody is right, blah, 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 except the Black Panthers, blah, blah, blah. But then when he committed the murders, his first thought was, maybe I should blame the Black Panthers, but I know I'm not going to get away with it. So whoever was grooming him was trying to, you know what I'm saying, get like maybe a militant group of, but the drugs involved with the LSD just made it go completely haywire.
Right. So yeah. So I think, because you got to remember, this is still like we talking about the time where Hoover, Edgar Hoover, and all these guys. I mean, I think Hoover was gone by this point, but it's still of that era, the Hoover like mentality, where the McCarthyism, where they wanted to make sure that they had tabs on everyone and they wanted to infiltrate everything, right? And I think they wanted to infiltrate Hollywood, so Hollywood controlled the American mind, right? Because if you convince young people that these Hollywood people that young people idolize Hollywood actors and actresses and musicians, right? So these are the people that you want to make sure you control, because they control a narrative, right? They can communicate certain things. And I think the way you control them is you only let people in that have dirty hands, right? So if I get you to do something criminal, some criminal acts, now I can control you now. Okay, go out there and be a Grammy. Go out there and be a Grammy award-winning actor or actress, but you better not get out of line. You better only do movies that I tell you to.
Let's hear from Dr. Mahasan what he has to say in that.
Say again?
I was saying let's hear from Dr. Mahasan's point of view, what she thought of or at that time and what she thinks about that point of the thing. And
I'm actually just jumping back in because my devices, I don't really know how far you guys have gotten, but in the beginning, I mean, I kind of agree with what Ray is saying, that definitely there is something behind all of that, of this, but we know that even today, right? Even today, Hollywood is we find that actors and actresses and entertainers are, being set up as speakers for the people, right? The people's voice, although they are not the voice of the people. And we know that our lifestyles are so vastly different. And so I don't think 1960s are any different from 2020s. I think that we're still being manipulated by entertainers and actors and even athletes, I would go so far to say. So I don't think this is anything different. It does talk, I think it does look at how America is set up. There's always someone else behind something else, right? There's always that door that we want to go through, but we can't. Right. But we just can't, right? And so I don't think the 1960s are any different. It's just that there's something new, but
that if you can, I have read whatever the history, and especially when I was reading the space war or space race, I would say So that's the time the Cold War, after the Second World War, and the Cold War started, and the space race, and the post-Kennedy era. That was the time when, I mean, you can cook anything at that time if you see those kind of things and those times. So if you can imagine, or if you can remember those kind of things or those times, so even people wanted, or the governments wanted to divert the people's attention so they could do any kind of stuff.
And they were able to do that. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure you guys just talked about it. I'm sure with, once those things like drugs and those kind of things were infiltrated into particular communities, you can control almost anything. You can control people in any way that you like.
And I think also, and this is something I've been trying to communicate to people a lot. You got to remember that America is a very unique country in that you had especially during that time, you had a real middle class, right? We could say the middle class is dying, and that middle class is dying, is dead. But at that time, the middle class was thriving, right? And that puts the powers that be at an interesting position because people really, and even to this day, Americans feel like they run the government, right? That we the people, my taxpayer dollars, democracy, all this stuff, right?
We may have felt like that when we was the middle class, but I think we know that we know different now. But I think
there's still people. I think there's still people who feel that way. But imagine if you're the government and you're the power to be, and you don't want to relinquish power, right? Especially now that you're a superpower, because you got to remember, at that point, America was only a superpower for 10 years, post World War II, 20 years, right? 20 years. So you want to hold on to being a superpower. You're controlling, or you are involved in everything that's going on in the world. And the one thing that you have to control is your own country. Because you remember, there was a civil war in America. And remember, you still have people who believe in state rights. This is the only country in the world that's really like this, where the people,
most of the red states. Yeah.
And so you gotta remember that even today, there are people who believe that the people are in charge, that the people must take over the government because the founding fathers.
That's what's on paper, and that's how that's what they tell us, and that's what's written.
So imagine if you're the powers that be, like you're the people who are really in charge, right? You got to control this group of people who are millions, who are tens, maybe 100 million plus of people. Because the interesting thing about the middle class is, right, what people who are not middle class still think they work middle class. So the working class feels like they're middle class, right? So you got all these people who feel like they're the middle class who are not really in the middle class. So a lot of people are entitled and empowered by the things that third grade history or a civics teacher taught them, right? If you're the powers that be, you have to control that. What is the best way to control that? Through Hollywood.
Yeah, that was one of the things. The TV, when the TV came in, things and the culture, the control of the things through the media and those kind of, that's the time when the TV was more popular, or that's the entertainment, or the new, you can say the focus of the people was towards that area. I mean, that entertainment. And also, at that time, if I can see it from neutral point of view, whenever I see that there was something done by Russia and that the people would start talking about, so then they had to divert the attention to do something, some project somewhere here and there, and inside also. And so that was a kind of the era when Kennedy was going through, and all those years later in 60s. So there were lots of things which lots of people, and maybe more than half of the world, still believes that it was true.
And this saw right. So, and this saw right for somebody being in charge, going by the rules, writing the constitutions, the laws, the powers that be, or whatever. But it's a different thing when you take from people, like you take the taxpayers' money and then you still mistreat them about it at the end, like on all fronts. That's the problem that I have. And I think that is just a matter of greed and corruption, not to say, well, we need a way to control y'all or whatever as a whole, as a government. But now you got so many entities. If you have the CIA going into the LAPD, going into Hollywood and all of that stuff, they were on some other stuff. They weren't following their laws either. Still to this day, they're not following their laws either.
Even they're not going by the book. Even
They're not,
when you're talking
well,
about
CIA was never designed to go by the book. That's why they had the National Security Act in
it was intentionally designed to. It was intentionally designed. They still had a set of laws that they were supposed to follow, but that don't mean that they that they was always going to follow them. You always had a faction that was off on their own doing this or off on their own doing that. When they got caught, they always managed to protect each other or something.
Because the CIA has infiltrated every part of the media. So there's so the CIA has, you can look this up. The CIA has a budget for Hollywood, something called a media budget and a Hollywood budget, right? So they have an actual budget to engage Hollywood, and they have an actual budget to gauge the media.
Yeah, and they have an actual budget to infiltrate us or whatever. I mean, we at our masters in East Orange and Newark and stuff like that, they come right in the ranks. They become members. They become on the boards, and next thing you know, somebody go to jail or go to court, and it's like, who is that? That's Detective so and so. He was on the case or whatever. They come in the gangs. They shoot the other. They become gang members. They peddle drugs. They get to do all of that. So we know the CIA is not a clean organization.
No. I think we definitely know that. And it was designed to protect the people who are really in charge, right? So I just want to keep I want to keep that in mind, and keep in mind that America is a very unusual country in that it's one of the only countries
in that it doesn't take care of its people.
No, hold on a second. Hold on a second. No country takes care of its people. None. None. There's no country that takes care of its people. But that's a different story. America is interesting in that they call it the great social experiment for a reason, right? And it's that people feel like they have power. In other countries, they know they don't have any power, right? But in America, people actually feel like they have power. That's why you had the January 6th issue, right?
Yeah.
4 years ago. So people actually feel like you have power. And I think what this book is, with Tom O'Neill, the author's book, he doesn't mention it, but I think one of the things that you got to consider is that all of these things went down ultimately is to control the people, right? Because we're the only country in this world that I can think of where the people are empowered and really feel like they're in charge. You know, the preamble. I'm not saying they are in charge, but they feel like they're in charge, right? Because
I would explain this thing that the people, when they are local state governments, the state local bodies and the local governments, they let the people feel, as what you are explaining, that they let the people feel that they are. But when the federal government comes in, the federal authority has different kind of set of rules.
Right, have a whole different set of rules. Yeah. So from the local they do it. Then the federal come in, they trumped it, whatever. And so maybe with the CIA and all of that coming, what Ray's speaking of is at that federal top echelon.
I think you guys are missing my point. Missing my point. That empowerment comes from what we are taught.
One vote, what voters be voters. Yes, exactly.
And more than that, it also comes about your civics. We the people, democracy. If the romanticizing of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, the founding fathers. And what happens is, maybe not so in the Black community, because maybe your Black history teacher or civics teacher didn't tell you that, because They didn't believe it, right?
Yeah,
But
because until the
white,
late
but white,
60s, the things were
but
different.
white kids are taught to love their country, right? You're taught to die for your country. Some
We
black
was
kids too.
taught that
Okay,
too. Hence
all
how
right,
I
all right.
entered the
So
military right
that's
out of high
that's
school.
my
We was
point.
taught that
That's
too.
so that's the point that I'm making, right? And to the point where you are you are empowered. Now, understand that again, America is one of the only countries where the people really feel like they are in charge.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you are the government, you have to control that. You have to control that. We're talking about the wealthiest nation on the planet, right? The most powerful military. You have to control all that, right?
Right. So that's the
Somebody,
problem. And that's the
and we
problem.
control it,
They
and we
controlled it. They controlled it, but they never been fair about it. They've been fair about it, like we going back
oh
to
no, they're never gonna be
writing
fair.
and writing, but not indeed in action. That is the problem. Because you
Right. No,
can't
the
tell a
whole
people,
thing,
you can't
the
empower a
whole
Maybe,
thing
person and
is
be like, listen, y'all empowered, one vote per
but
person. This is how this go. This is how the government work. And then on the other end, be going, psych your mind. That ain't really how it goes. We're gonna show y'all
and
what
there
what,
will
really
be
counts.
and
when we would
that's
go
see,
later in the book, probably later in the book, what I understand, he would be addressing the links which, as you mentioned, that he's setting up the plot now with the characters and stuff like that. Then the kind of the curtain is like away from you, or raised, so that you see the actual things. The players
well,
would come out.
the curtain is no. What he does is he tries to connect the dots. The curtain is never raised, and he tells you that at the end of the book. He tells you at the end of the book he's just as confused as when he first started, because there's so many things that just makes you
Yeah, the part of the
confused,
puzzle
and
which are
that's the
not fitting
whole.
into the
And
story.
that's the point that I want to make. The point that I want to make is that people that it's this book highlights the fact that it was never supposed to be fair. They tell us it's supposed to be fair, but it's never going to be fair. There's no fair society, right? The the trade-off is Americans were supposed to we were supposed to get our bread for circus. Everybody know what bread for circus is, right?
Brad, say that again.
Bread for circus. You ever
Okay,
heard the concept? Bread for
breed
circus?
bred for
I
circus,
never heard
Yeah.
that before.
Okay.
like you
So
breed them for the to play in the certain roles in the society.
so bread for circus it was introduced in the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire was falling, right? They tried to keep people's mind off of it using the gladiator. Remember the gladiators? The Colosseums?
Just saw
Right,
gladiators too.
right. So the gladiators were there to keep the people's minds off of the Roman Empire falling. The Roman Empire was it took the Roman Empire 1,000 years to fall, but they were falling, right? So the escapism, we call it escape, psychology is called escapism, right? So in America, Hollywood is a part of the bread for circus. The NFL is a part of the bread for circus. The NBA is a part of the bread for circus. Soccer, FIFA is a part of the bread for circus. It's designed to keep your mind off of the real issues. Alcohol is a part of the bread for circus. Happy hour, right? In America, happy hour is 5 days a week, right? Starts at 4, ends at 7, right? Right? It's to keep your mind off of the real issues, right? You want people high.
And it's
You
such an
want people doped
oxymoron
up.
because they tell you to go to an oxymoron, and then all they got to do is wait for you to get in your car and give you a DUI. It's so
Give you
crazy.
a DUI, right? To keep you down. Why? Because that's the way to keep control, right? It's what an abusive husband does to a wife, right?
Yeah.
Right? No, I don't want you to get an education. No, I don't want you to do this. I need you to do that. Tries to keep her always pregnant, so she doesn't thrive, right? So he can have and maintain power. And
Look, the
so
same thing Sharon Polanski did to Sharon Tate, except she was
same
actress and
things
had her own
Polanski did
money.
to Sharon. Same things Polanski did to Sharon Tate, right? Interesting enough, if you
Abuse.
how much the other question that we have to ask is how much did Polanski play in this? Why wasn't he home? He was supposed to be home. right?
He
He kept
kept saying
going,
he wasn't coming home too.
right, I ain't coming home, right?
And then
So
she can't come, and you can't come.
and you can't come. So did he have a
And that
role in
guy,
this?
and he insisted that that guy stayed here, knowing that that guy was a known trafficker. Canada knew he was trafficking. These guys went to Jamaica, got drugs. They went to Mexico. I was like, boy, they sure getting away with a lot of stuff, just carrying on drugs up
Did
there on the plane.
did you go far with the guy being raped?
Say that
Yes.
again. Oh, give them
Yes.
bread and circuses, and they will never revolt. Okay, I see what you're saying, Auntie. Mm-hmm.
The did
She
you read
was
the part about the rape with was it
with the men.
the
Yeah.
man got raped?
Yeah,
Yes.
with the
Uh
men, the
It was
man that
way
got
too
raped,
much.
right?
yeah, yeah. And he when he was high, he didn't know. He claims he didn't know he was raped.
He
He wasn't
knew.
sure, but
He
he
knew
knew.
because later on he said he was getting somebody to look in the mirror.
So the again, this idea of how it's about power, right? It's about power. You do that to make somebody to take a power away from somebody. You rape
And then
somebody
that's why,
and take their
and
power
that's
away.
why, and that's why a lot of still you have a lot of musicians you wonder they like rise to the top and had these hits and they be like one hit wonders and then you be like what happened to them? It's because they wasn't willing to play that game to go
The
further.
one
They was
play
like, nah,
right.
if I gotta do that, I'm out. Look at Phyllis Hyman. She took her life. She was like, I'm out.
Look at Billie Holiday.
I'm out.
Look at it's look at Dave Chappelle. Like there's so many people. Even Richard Pryor kind of alluded to the fact that he sold himself right down the river. Like you look at all these people, while all of them most of the time are connected to drugs, right? Or they have to capitulate. Like, is there a family right now that is completely like homogeneous, traditional Hollywood family? Can you think of one? I mean,
I
I
want to
don't
even
say
know.
Denzel,
I want to say Angela Bassett and Courtney Vance.
maybe I think they're pretty normal, right? Um, that's probably the one I can think of because even my man Denzel, kid, she's she wilding out here in these streets. You know what I mean?
Denzel, but good thing that his wife was holding it down the whole time, and his sons testify to that. They be like, "Your father, this,
But
they get on YouTube. They be like, no, my mother." That's
how
what he
did
means.
but
No, I
but
know Denzel Washington bodyguards on a personal level, so
but but my thing is how do you have somebody like Denzel, right? But his daughter is wilding out in these streets, right? It's like what is going on, right? What is going on? Um, it seems like all these Hollywood folks, even to this day, have to do something to to stay relevant, right? So ultimately, what I want to say about this book is this book is about some power who wants to maintain power and keep their power, and they have to do be extremely aggressive, especially in the states, because you're dealing with people who actually think they're the boss, right? You're dealing with a country of people who actually feel like they're the boss. I mean, how many people?
Illuminati, Illuminati. That's the name I was
Yeah,
thinking of.
yeah, the Illuminati, yeah. So, but how
Illuminati.
many people? Think about it. How many people
Sorry,
in
I had
other
to Google it.
countries? How many people in other countries talk shit to the police? Excuse my French.
How many
You know what I
what?
mean? How many people in other countries talk major crap to the police?
How
You
many
see
people
some,
in other countries have to talk it?
no, well, a lot, but they're too scared. They're too scared because they are repressed. Well, you better not talk crap to the police because the police you will be missing. Or you get arrested and trumped up charges. See, and that's why America is really interesting. I'm not saying America is perfect, but it's an interesting country in that we have this thing called due process. And even though you could say due process is not fair, at the end of the day, we do have due process, right? We do have this thing that even though you can be totally mistreated, you have this thing that can give you some type of retribution called due process, right?
Yeah, because
Through the
hence
justice
Charles
system.
Manson. Hence Charles Manson. He should have
Other
been a lifer.
Yeah, I
other
still I
countries,
have two questions regarding
other
this one.
countries. Hold on a second. This is an important point. Other countries don't. Most other countries don't have due process. There's very few countries that has something similar to America's due process, and I think that's what makes it very interesting, and that's why you see this continuous press on Hollywood and on athletes and on music because they gotta offer the bread for circus. They gotta keep people entertained, right? And they gotta keep people, like you said, with the DUIs. Yeah, go out there and drink, but you better not drive, right? Do all these things, but you better not drive. Or, all these medication commercials. But if you take too many of them, then we're gonna put you in the nut house, right? And then we're gonna label you. They have to do those things to maintain power in this country because they
Yeah,
kind of put themselves.
but it's really a waste of time and energy to go through that because at the end of the day, they in a position they don't know who to trust. You got over 160 some or even more different types of law enforcement agencies, and yet you just still elected a felon for president. Proof that you want him to be there. Proof that you go through any means to let him be there because that's what you want. Because everybody have bid off into that power, whether it was foreign or domestic, the government, the people up that just be like, hey, I like him or whatever. Everybody handed now got a government you okay, I'll send your turn. You got people you don't know who to trust no more.
Well, and that's what you want. You want is to
Chaos. Just like
you want
just like the
that's
name
what
of
the
this
book.
book,
You
chaos.
want chaos. You have to have chaos, right? Because if you didn't have chaos, then you either got to be repressive, right? You either got to be a repressive state, and let's be honest, Saudi is a repressive state, right? It's a repressive state. Let's be real. It's a repressive. You can't. There's no freedom of speech. There's no due process. That's just the way it is, right? I'm not saying that's good or bad, but you can't have it both ways. So if you're going to
I don't even
say,
mind being repressive if you're doing right by me. I don't mind being submissive if you're doing right by me. I worship Allah. I feel because Allah is doing right by
eh,
me. That's why
so,
I don't feel like I worship Allah. Then Allah is giving me the worst of
and that, and
everything,
that,
whatever you understand, what comes
and
from the
and,
shaitan,
and
what
that's what
comes
that,
from Allah.
and
And
that's why I
I'm
said
all
that,
right with that, following the rules. But
and that's
you
what
do
that's.
me right.
I, I get you. So, but there's some people who believe who want like they don't want to be repressed. My point is, so you got a country and you have countries, but we talk about America right now, where we sell the idea, we the people, that freedom, these concepts, right? In order to sell that concept, you got to have chaos. So you don't have chaos in Saudi Arabia. You don't have chaos in Saudi Arabia because you have controls, right? You have control. So there's no chaos because you have controls. Makes sense? But if you have this idea of um, freedom, you got to have chaos. So and
I
then
think
you get
that
so then you got to go.
I think that the freedom when you got in freedom and one thing I think because because the place was built on theft and stealing people and stealing land or whatever that the only reason why they call it freedom is because they wanted a part of it. Hey, let me have some of your land. Let's be free. Let us be free. Let us be free, but don't let y'all be free. So that's where that chaos come in. But they need all these
Listen,
different things and whatever to control it. But I think if you was to be true, correct, and balanced and fair with everybody, that everybody could find their right lane to make things work.
so
But
you
you
so
can't come to the table and agree with me and be like, hey, we're gonna agree that this, and that, but then you over here plotting that ain't gonna happen. You ain't
but you
gonna
got to
never let me
understand.
see this, and that
You got
I
to
agree.
you got to understand that there's no utopia, right? In fact, the very definition of utopia is in itself, in its name, means it doesn't exist. There's no sovereignty on this planet that did not steal the land that they currently have. None. There's not one country.
I get it, but you
hold
cannot
on,
say you
hold on a
cannot
second.
act like it didn't happen and not have a reckoning and admit it and just be like, well,
No,
life go on, but you
nobody.
better
The
not do it, and
Philippines,
you better
the
not do
Philippines, the
nothing wrong.
Philippines are not going to tell you that they're not the original Filipinos, right? The Spaniards are not going to tell you they're not the original Spaniards. Nobody's going to tell you that. Nobody's going to admit to it. The Israelis don't admit to it, and we have that on record, right? So nobody admits to it. That's neither here nor there. That's and this is what I'm on now in my life. That nothing's that we are animals at the end of the day,
Or what?
and we are animals. We are animals. We're part of the animal kingdom, right? We're intellectual beings, but we're still animals, right? And we look out for our own ambition, our own wants, needs, and expectations. That's what we all do. We seek our own wants, needs, and expectations. We all do that, right? America is very interesting in that it has to be chaotic to sell this pipe dream of freedom, right? It has to, in itself, it has to be, it has to have hypocrisy in order to sell that pipe dream. Other nations say, you know what? I'm not going to sell you that pipe dream like that. We're gonna be a monarchy, right?
Hypocrisy can't be on a level where you tell somebody, listen, we're gonna nominate you for the Supreme Court, and but you can have all of these strikes against you, and we don't care. We're gonna lie, we're gonna cheat, we're gonna hide the stuff. That's just
Bridget, that goes on in every country.
but
Every nation's
still,
like that.
I can only
It's
speak
it's what
about
I'm saying. It's a part of the human condition, is what I'm trying to tell you.
yeah,
I'm just
but
talking.
I could still honestly say that. But I could still honestly say that. Then don't have a set of rules. Then one place may be repressive, but you could say you have Islamic Sharia, so you try to live your life accordingly the best you can. They don't,
But
according to their
but
guidelines or whatever,
but if you're
and
talking
that's
about in
fine.
that, yeah,
all,
but if you're
all rules.
talking,
Wait a minute.
Anytime.
Go ahead, Asin. Go ahead. Let Asin go.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
if you're talking in that direction, there are lots of cults in different parts of the United States, and you can just imagine like those Mormons and others, like you can see there's those kind of things that they have completely different things, which is not projected in the norms as a norm of America. It's not presented in that kind of living, even the family life and all those social traditions and all those
Yeah,
kind
the
of things.
Amish
But this,
people. That's
the
true.
Amish and the
Yeah, but
those.
the Amish are not breaking laws. The Amish.
No, I'm not
They're
talking
living
about the
under.
breaking laws. I'm talking about the kind of the social structure they are living in, the social lives, the the married lives. They are differently defining the kind of norms as the American laws in terms of what is written in the Constitution or written as general practice.
Well, we got to remember that.
That's
You got to
true.
remember that was what was the appeal of America, right? That you could come to America. I'm talking about idealistically. I'm not saying that this is the case. That you can come to America and you can live this life the way you want to live it, whether it be Amish, whatever you were, right? That
Yeah, I
was
mean
the that was
these
the
no,
initial appeal.
no,
That was
those
the initial appeal.
Amish, if you're talking about the Amish and the Mormons, they were born there. I mean, like I'm talking about those religions or those, they originated a
No,
couple
they
of hundred
came.
years
Well,
ago.
everyone
They didn't come
came.
up with that idea. I mean,
But
they
No,
even
didn't
every
still
import.
now, like he's saying, they practice
Yeah,
their lifestyle in their regions of the world, and they don't kick up no smoke. They
they
don't
were
bother
also
nobody,
like cult
and,
leaders.
and
If
everybody
you
leave
if
them alone. But it
Yeah,
is
even
still
if
kind of cultish.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, but hold on a second. You got to
People say the
remember.
same thing about Islam. If you got, like
yeah,
I said, when you get small pockets of Islam in the United States, the CIA and the FBI and them, they right along with you. They get in the range, they learn to pray, they do all of that stuff. And they be there
Listen,
5, 6, 7 years being strong in Islam, and all of a sudden you don't see them, you be like, they never was a part of us anyway. So
listen.
they so
The
they don't
every
infiltrate the other stuff, but they always infiltrate our stuff.
No, first of all, Mormons are heavily infiltrated, right?
but
Everyone, even Amish are infiltrated. There's no. If you read Hoover didn't trust anybody. He didn't trust. He didn't trust his own. I don't think he trusted his own. He didn't trust himself, right? So everyone is infiltrated.
And
Even
that's
if
why
you
we
try
got
to
the
go,
most. That's why we
everyone,
got
if you go
the
off the
most
grid,
corrupt social experience ever.
so it's not the most corrupt. It's, and that's the point. The point of the book, in my opinion, is to have you understand that there's no utopia, right? This America, this 1960s America was when America was at its height. The 60s, the 50s and the 60s, it was when America was at
How
its
could you
height.
say it was America was at its height? That's what we
No,
was
find that
fighting and marching and everything. Kennedy got killed,
that
Malcolm
doesn't
got
matter.
killed, Martin got
It's
killed. Come on.
Bridget, economically and as a world power.
Maybe
No,
post that, maybe the
no,
70s. I would say
no,
more
no,
so
no.
than the
70s
60s.
was the decline of America. You just got to read. So you got to know postmodernism. The America's height was post World War II up until the 70s. In the 70s, that's when the education system went down. That's when you had LBJ's Great Society. They started to decline.
I graduated from high school in 1979, so I saw the best of both worlds. I was born in 61, so to me it was all like, it was a lot going on and stuff like that. But I can't say the 60s was the best. Maybe it was the best as far as
No,
my mother was concerned, but as a school age child or whatever, I couldn't see that in the 60s.
You remember?
From a historic, historians agree
I was
that
thinking.
the 50s and 60s, hold on a second, the 50s and 60s was America's apex. And that after the 60s, even though it had all this chaotic
You
stuff going
saying what
on.
historians saying, I just said my experience. So I
No,
don't care
I'm
what
just
the
saying,
historians say.
I'm
I'm
saying,
saying my experience,
I'm saying,
how I see it.
I'm talking about from the strength of the dollar,
Yeah, so
from the
maybe,
influence.
to historians, as far as the money up the top or whatever, but for a poor child or whatever that watched
No,
Sesame Street in conjunction function and learned about civics and stuff on TV on Saturdays afternoon, on Saturday morning, you can watch TV and learn about the government.
No, I didn't say that I didn't say that it was at it was the apex was the 60s, right? It started to go down. It was still good in the 70s. It was still kind of good in the 80s, but as it started to get worse and worse. The 90s was better than the 2000s. The 2000s is better than now.
So every time a Republican get in is worse, and every time the Democrats get in, they get a little better. Because that decline of that people. Yeah, go ahead. I hear you though.
It doesn't matter who's in. It just
you always gonna have one group that's trying to do what's right and another group that ain't gonna let you, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, but
you're gonna run into some resistance from them.
I was thinking going back to our book.
You ever heard the saying?
I was thinking going back to our book and the main characters.
Republicans are dogs and are dogs and Democrats are foxes. Right? They both members of the canine family.
I care about. They're
both members of the canine. They're both members of the canine family, right?
Well,
the Republicans no different than a Democrat. No Democrats no different than a Republican. They're both a part of the chaotic system. They both contribute to the chaotic system, and that's the whole point.
But you could be chaotic, but give me something out of it. Give me some benefits.
I would have a question for Ray. Ray, because you have read the book as well. I was going to ask you. Yes. Oh, sorry. I was thinking I was going to ask you, how do you feel or see that this guy, Charles Manson's childhood when he ran away from the school, if you have read about that one, and then how his mother put her back to that school. So how you see that kind of impacted after that he didn't go to the school. That school was like pretty hard school that I think some missionary school.
It was a reform school.
Like it was pretty hard. They would beat a person or a student there.
He was raped there. He was abused there. Those places the only thing they do is teach you how to become a criminal.
That's what I was. My question was, how do you see that institute in helping him to develop what he became?
I truly believe that at some point, whether it was at the reform school, but some point in his criminal career, he was recruited by folks, and again, I don't want to spoil the book because there's an indication
Yeah.
through Tom O'Neill's journalism that when this may have happened. But at some point, even before Tom O'Neill mentions, I think he was recruited probably in prison, probably in jail by a CIA, by someone, whether CIA or whoever, to begin this journey of starting a family.
Yeah, because according to psychology, the a person's psychiatric or the psychology is set, or his personality is set around the age of 7. So whatever he learned around that time and that school, that persists for long, and is whatever he does, either he's caught up in the local governments or whatever the kind of cults or whatever.
He definitely did not have it fair. You know, he was doomed for the life that he was doomed to have a chaotic life, no pun intended. That's why I find it interesting that he becomes Charles Manson and not just some petty criminal who goes to jail for murder.
The Manson was not his actually father, but he carried the name his mother married
No, I'm
to.
just saying that when I say Charles Manson, I'm talking about the infamous Charles Manson.
Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of weird that even when his mother got married, when she cleaned up her act, whatever, that she couldn't take her son with her. Like, I just didn't.
Because I think at that point, I think he was probably incorrigible. I think he couldn't be turned around. He was too much of a problem at that point. You know?
For her, she was too much of a problem for her.
Yeah, so she was trying to turn around.
Right. She finally got somebody to take care of her, to love her. She like, I'm out of here later for you.
Right. Because he was
still very young. He was still very young. He was still in his teens.
Yeah.
He broke. I said, Dad, I ain't know it was that easy to get out of jail. I said he broke out of jail like 15 times. I might be exaggerating.
More than that. Like, all the years from
I broke out again. When he break out, nobody looks for him. You leave the military, somebody on your case.
40s? Something like 40s?
You gotta remember it. You gotta remember it.
Say that again. What's the question again? What's the question, Asin?
I was saying that probably in 40s when he was first time arrested.
He was 14, younger than that.
No, 40s. Yeah, no, 40s or something, like I'm talking about the year in which he was arrested, something like
that. That might be in the late 40s, maybe in late 40s.
Yeah, late 40s, 49.
You gotta remember too.
He was young. He was a young guy.
You gotta remember too, they didn't have sophisticated jails back then, right? They didn't have. It was easy to break out these jails back then.
It was easy to break out where he was at.
Where he was at. Yeah, he wasn't like in some hardcore prison.
It wasn't that. It was easy to break out where he was at. If he was in our neck of the woods, they wouldn't know he was, but they wouldn't found him.
So, yeah, I mean, that was a common theme that criminals were during that time were always breaking out of jail. Many criminals were breaking out of jail. But you got to remember, he was at a reform school, so it wasn't like they had barbed wire or anything like that. It was probably you just figure out when the guard went to sleep and just walk out the door.
And I could see that a lot of times when people are incarcerated, their lives can go in many directions. The same way in life in general, you got a lot of different paths that you figure out which path is it.
I think it's getting late. I mean, like I'm talking about, like the other people might not get bored.
I'm quite sure they are.
We have crossed the time. We're 9:20.
Oh, you know what? I'm reading the clock wrong. I'm thinking that we just started at 9 o'clock. Jeez.
No, we have started like an hour and 20 minutes.
No, we've been talking about Manson. And I missed like.
Let's listen from Dr. Mahasin.
She might be asleep.
She's there, I think.
Her audio, she might be asleep. Auntie be tired.
Yeah, we would probably put everybody to sleep.
And she didn't like the gory murders and stuff like that. It put her like in the kind of my uncle just passed away not long ago, so we just put her in a kind of like she didn't want to be there with all that murder and death stuff right there.
Well, the good thing about it is there's no more murder in the book.
I'll let her
or talking murder.
Probably fell asleep though, because I don't hear anything.
Yeah,
Sergeant, you probably hung up.
No, he's there.
No one slept because it was very interesting discussion.
Yeah, it was. I haven't left. I'm here.
Melcher. All right. So as you read on, I don't want to hold everybody else, but
And
consider Melcher, right? Consider Melcher and the role that Melcher played. Melcher was the producer, the highfalutin producer. Um, Go and listen to the transaction between Tom O'Neill and Melcher. What role did Melcher play in all of this? Why did Melcher lie on stand? Um, why did the LAPD say they didn't have when Tom O'Neill requested the records? Why did they say they were all destroyed when they weren't destroyed? Uh, there's a lot of why questions. If the Manson family was this group of weirdos who turned to murderers, why are people covering some of their actions? So as you read, just think about that, Mr. Sajak.
yeah, actually, America provides a due process, and as a result, somehow chaos is created. And how this chaos is manipulated. This chaos is manipulated through different ideologies, and these ideologies are presented through Hollywood. And who controls Hollywood? Hollywood is controlled by people like Charles Manson. And
Well, I mean, like if you're talking those connections, we'll talk in the next session about that one. I will
I'm
really
Well, but
coming.
just go
I'm
I
ahead.
think he
coming to
makes
the
a good
book.
point. I think he makes a good point. You know,
I'm
Roman
coming to the
Polanski was
book
a
now.
child. Roman Polanski was a rapist. He was a pedophile rapist, and he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
controlled. He was an elite, an Hollywood elite, right? You look at what's the one Weinstein, Jeffrey Weinstein. You know, with all the nonsense, he was a Hollywood elite. So I think Mr. Sadger is absolutely right. The people who are in control of Hollywood are just as crazy as Charlie Manson. Is that the only difference is Charlie Manson's mother and father didn't have a house in Beverly Hills and have millions of dollars. That's the only difference.
Charlie Manson has been has spent his life in rehabilitation centers, and during his stay, he was hired by some hawks, as you were saying. He was hired some hawks, and he was hired some agents. That is why, right after murder, when the murder took place in when murder took place, then Sebring's student, Little Joe, got a call from a general that he would not be harmed. So it means that Manson was controlled from some deep state, and that's why Joe received a call. Little Joe received a call that he would not be harmed, but his teacher he has been killed. So
And one other point I want to make. You ever notice that every time Tom O'Neill interviews one of these people, they all threaten his life? Like, how are they
Yeah.
so empowered to always threaten his
Yeah. I
life?
mean, like
Every last person says they're going to
not
kill him.
only Tom and Neil, he mentioned other people that whenever they were interviewing those guys, or even that what was the name of the guy? Vincent. So when he was interviewing Vince,
At the
whoever,
nursing
so
home when
they,
they went to him.
yeah, the Vince, whenever he was interviewed by other people, they had their consequences.
Yeah. Oh he told the lady that she was going to
Yeah,
plant drugs in his son's at her son's
yeah,
school or something.
yeah.
Like, why is all this for a group of nobody hippies,
Yeah.
drug addict, criminal hippies? Like, why are they protecting them? Um, and we will probably never know, but it's pretty weird. All right, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah. Maybe we'll keep it
So,
for the next, because there are lots of meetings going to be. Probably
so
we
we need
would
to
have
add
maybe five.
to the character list. There's like a lot of people we didn't add to this list.
Yes, yes.
I was interested in Gail. I'm interested in Gail though, because she kind of like low key. She like rolling her eyes, like I'm so sick of him in this.
Because I think she knows he's lying about half the stuff. She knows more. She knows more. Um, but I think what I'm gonna do, Mr. Hassan, is I'm gonna run a running list of everyone. Um, the Beach Boys, was it Brian Wilson? The
Warren
other
Betty, Mamas and
that
Papas, Guns and
uh,
Roses. It's like a lot.
um the Vincent
I'll do that.
Tex Ryan, was it Tex
The
Ryan?
other
Like
lady that said Manson came and urinated in her pool. What was her name? Elkie Summers. I remember her.
yeah,
I remember a lot of people. Like
Yes.
I said,
yeah.
I'm a child. I'm a 60s babies.
So like
I'm a boomer. I'm a boomer.
Baby boomers.
I'm a baby boomer.
all right. So what chapter are we reading next?
Tell me.
Listen, you guys tell me I'm invested in this book, so
So you want to read until what chapter?
you tell me. I'm
Like you want to go until like chapter 6?
well, I think everybody didn't get a chance to read, so I think should let everybody catch up.
So what
So
You
page we
want
talk? I only read
to
the page 68. I'm on a haircut from Little Joe, but oh God, I think I messed up my Zoom call doing that.
no, you good. Yeah,
Sajid, if we would go to chapter 5, what page it would be? End of chapter 5?
I can check.
I don't know how to get it back, y'all. Let me see.
because I would like everybody to get caught up.
Chapter 5 would be good because then Yasmin can catch up as well.
What page is that? Because I'm on 68 and I it don't have chapters. It just have like, maybe you do have chapters.
No, you have. The first page 5 are all the list of chapters. You click anyone, it would go to that chapter.
Oh, I just see mine say a haircut from little Jody. Jody, I don't know. Oh, okay. If I go in the beginning to see what chapter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chapter 5, page 5.
Oh shoot, I can't do that right now, can I? Yeah, I can.
I'm pretty sure that's chapter 3. When he was getting a
68.
haircut, he gave somebody was getting a haircut, I think. Right?
Yeah, it tell you what yeah, I don't know what chapter I'm in because the haircut thing ain't on is not on here. So I must be on the crime of the century still.
Let me
Because I don't
do
remember
that.
the golden penetrators or the aura of danger. So I still must be on chapter.
Go to Penetrators is chapter end of chapter. It's chapter 3, chapter 4.
Let me see. Chapter 5 is page 148.
Then I'm definitely not that far. I'm on page
So
68.
chapter
So I don't know
40,
what
chapter
chapter
5
that
would
is.
be okay. So other people can catch up. So
Well,
only
no,
50.
no, because that's 148. It ends at 148.
Yeah.
No, they give people a chance to catch up.
That's 100 pages.
Yeah, give people a chance to catch up. So just make
Yeah,
it chapter
like
4. Chapter 4.
Chapter
only
4 ends on. Can I get a
in
page
the
number?
116 only, I think
Yeah,
116.
let's give them a chance. Get everybody a chance to catch up.
Then I'll catch up to there. I thought I don't know why I thought it read the page
Page
7.
115 is page 115. So the people would be reading only, you guys or some guys would be, Sajid would be reading only 15-20 pages in a week.
Yeah, that's fine. Give everybody a chance to catch up because it's hard.
Okay.
It's hard to talk about the book.
Yeah, I had to read maybe 3, 5, 4 times. Then there are some references. Then I go on the sidelines to read those kind of things. It's a heavy stuff.
It's
Yeah,
loaded
it is.
information.
But it's interesting. He did a good job, I think, in connecting the dots. All right, guys. So let's just take it to chapter 4 and get everybody a chance to catch up.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, inshallah. See y'all next week.
And I want you to focus on Melcher and see if Melcher. What do you think about Melcher? And and because I'll let you guys read. We'll talk about it next week.
All right.
Melcher seems real criminal.
Yeah, Melcher is wild. Melcher's a wild boy. He's a wild boy. But This is
Uh-oh.
something
Uh-oh.
weird. This is something weird. Anyway, let's talk about it next week.
All right.
All right.
All right.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Bye for now.